Madongo, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Deputy President of Absip. In times past, Deputy Presidents have not been visible, but we are in a new dispensation, and on short notice, I could get married this Saturday. But anyway, on that note, thank you so much to everyone who has taken time to come out and join us for this, the second installment of the Absip CEO Roundtables. By way of giving an introduction, we brought together, we thought it would be necessary to have conversations with those who are driving the organizations within our sector to find out where they've come from in terms of the journey on transformation, where they are going, where there are speed humps, and this being South Africa, potholes as well, so that we can all learn collectively and try to drive the transformation that we want to see in this sector. I think it's important to also highlight that for us, transformation goes beyond just race. It's also about gender, diversity, and inclusion in all its iterations. We hope that one day, possibly in my lifetime, we will have a financial service sector that looks like our country and has also created opportunities of inclusion for those who have sat on the margins. At this particular point in time, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to acknowledge the presence of each and every one of you, especially those from EPPF. I'm protecting Monday now. Yeah. And Mr. Sbi, a national key point. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and pleasure to invite, after a short video, the CEO of Alexforbes Investment, Madam Anne Lepile, to come and introduce our distinguished guest, my president and my second largest investor, the CEO of Alexforbes Group.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know, my name is Anne Lepile. I am not new anymore, hey Dawie, I'm the CEO of Alexforbes Investments. So it's quite interesting. When I joined this organization, I was very fortunate to fall into a groundbreaking transformation policy, which was the Alexforbes transformation policy. Fortunate in that I almost took all the credit for it, right? But I've also been very clear that this was not a journey I had actually walked without an incredible team alongside it, above me and beside me. But transformation in this business is something that we truly believe in. It is not something we are doing to appease investors. It is not something we are doing to appease clients. The recent promotions that we had 2 weeks ago is not something that was meant to just look good on paper. So I often say to the guys, we must remember that where we all are is a combination of hard work, opportunity, but also luck. Somebody must give you a chance. Somebody must believe that you deserve the seat at the table. And I'm very proud to say that I believe that we are in the kind of organization that people really deserve the seats that they have and will deliver the results. On to Absip. We had our first meeting with Absip, with the, at the time, brand new Absip president. I think it was early last year. And I gave Madam President one, I'm not going to call it a critique, it was feedback. I said it really had gotten to a point where it felt like Absip wasn't talking for all Black professionals in the industry any longer. There was a subset that was benefiting from Absip rhetoric, and the rest of us had been grouped into a group that didn't need assistance, that didn't need support, and didn't need help. And Madam President, I'd really like to say thank you for hearing us out. Absip has once again become inclusive. It's become something we all want to walk the journey with. It has become an organization that we love collaborating with, because it truly speaks to what it is we need to walk towards in the transformation journey. So congratulations to yourself. And initiatives like this are really great to get the leaders in front of our members. I say our because we are a proud member of Absip. And then I think I've used this joke once, but it's not a joke, it's actually true, that when I joined the business, I brought my daughters to come see the new brand of the building outside. And my 8-year-old at the time said, but it doesn't say Alexforbes Investments. I said, yes, it says Alexforbes. She says, so you're not really the boss. She was right? So talking about the real boss of the organization, Dawie is an inclusive leader. The transformation policy could have never happened without his approval, but most importantly, without his support. You must understand that we have got a very diverse client mix, and to get everybody on board, including staff, including clients, needed the most senior level of support. And he really was willing to roll with the punches and the gunshots and the threats and all of it to really say this is something we are standing behind. So honestly, we can't thank you enough for the support you've given transformation in this organization. Without you, none of it would be possible. He fell into this by mistake, by the way, corporate. As you can see when you stand up, if you haven't seen him yet, he's a big guy, right? So actually used to be a rugby player, and that was his initial ambition in you know, when they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think we were lucky that he didn't succeed in rugby, because we get to have him, and it really is an amazing team to be part of. So Dawie, Madam President.
Good afternoon, Absippers. Dawie, you are included in that Absipper definition.
Thank you.
And thank you so very much for agreeing to have this conversation with us. And when we conceptualized this idea of the CEO roundtables or series, we felt it important to have conversations, real conversations with industry leaders about, well, firstly to bring a face to these names that we read about, Dawie, and the person behind it, so that we know that you're not some hocha somewhere, but also a real person, to bring you closer to the people that you lead. You lead a significant organization in our industry, and there are a lot of young professionals that are coming up, and they want to know, what does it take to be the CEO of Alexforbes? So I'll be taking notes myself, because that's the next step for me. But really to understand what keeps you up at night. What do you think about? What problems are you trying to solve? And it's a pity that we don't have young people in the audience, because I would have liked for them to say, well, Dawie, if that's what keeps you up at night, this is the solution I have. I'm just seeing old people. Where are the young people? So and for you to get to know the next generation as well, because I think as you guys navigate whatever waters you need to navigate, you probably lose out on the opportunity to interact and engage with the future leadership, and hopefully use those opportunities to guide as well as we go along. So thank you very much for this. I called it a two-nadering when we spoke, and I think that's what got you over the line. I think you were very skeptical about it, and I was like, Dawie, it's a two-nadering. Anyway, he felt
that calmed me down immediately.
So thanks for allowing us the opportunity to have this conversation, and it is really a conversation, Dawie. So please, let's make it that. And you're welcome to also ask questions if you feel that you want some clarity or you want to push back on anything. So maybe let's start with, I don't know, you're a rugby player, so let's get to know you a little bit about, let's hear a little bit about your journey. How did you get here? Where did it all start, and what inspired it?
Yes, it's an interesting one because Anne is 100% right. I only wanted to play rugby. It's the only thing I wanted to do. I actually went to university to play rugby, not to study. You know, so it was the thing I wanted to do, and I just realized after 2 years at varsity trying very hard that I'm not good enough. So that in its first was a difficult awareness that you're just not good enough, and then I realized I had to study. I had to study hard and make a career out of work in corporate life. And it was good. It was good for me, and I think the journey, anyone's journey, life journey, is always full of ups and downs, and you must learn through the downside to be stronger on the upside. And I think I've had many downs. I always tell people that it was for my sins I studied actuarial. It was the only thing that I could get a bursary for at the time. They didn't want to give bursaries, and I didn't qualify for anything, and they said, okay, if you're willing to study actuarial, we'll give you a bursary. And otherwise I couldn't go study. We just didn't have the money. So I did actuarial, only finding out at varsity what it was about, because I was actually there to play rugby, and so the things worked out that way, and luckily it panned out. I remember when I qualified, one of my friends said, and it's probably still my biggest motivator in life. One of my friends called. He's not a friend anymore, but he was a friend at the time. He called and said, geez, like, you became an actuary. Maybe I should consider being one as well. If you could do it, I can do it. So that's still my biggest motivation. This is like 20 odd years ago. It's still my biggest motivation in life, to prove people that you can do it, and set yourself challenges. So it's a little bit of my background. Yeah.
I actually, before we move on, I mean, you said such profound things, and I don't know whether you realize how important some of what you've shared is. Firstly, you were in love with rugby, and rugby didn't love you back.
Yeah.
And you had
to accept it.
Exactly. and it's such an important thing to learn to do when you try, and there's nothing wrong with trying out new things, but you also need to know when to stop. That's a strength, right? I think that's important. I also like the idea of I wanted to go to school to play rugby, and I could only get a scholarship for actuarial science, and that's what I did. So you grabbed an opportunity. You knew you wanted to get out of wherever you were to a point, and you thought, look, if this is my gateway out of it, I'm going to grab it. I think that's such an important thing to also just highlight, because I think a lot of us, as we come up the ranks, we forget these important principles in life, that sometimes you have to do. They say sometimes you have to do what you don't want to do in order for you to be able to do what you actually want to do ultimately.
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I actually just dawned on me when Anne actually mentioned it, these opportunities that comes by, and it's not just when you're young, when you get a job, or a bursary or an opportunity. It's throughout your life. You get these nuggets of opportunities, which you have to seize, and you have to be aware of when they come along in order to seize them. And I think some people that, might from the outside seem successful, maybe they were just, lucky in getting the opportunities, firstly, and secondly, being aware of them when they come along, and then you can grab onto them. So it is very true.
Yeah.
It is very true.
And my favorite is showing your friend the middle finger by saying, well, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well over and over again, just to prove that you were wrong about me. I think that's another interesting one. So thanks for that, Dawie. And I think it's an important journey because it's a journey of transformation as well. And I want us to bring that, or rather, I want us to get into transformation. So when you started, I imagine that you started working either late 80s or 90s.
94 was my first year.
So the world was different then. I imagine when you entered into the space, it was very male, it was very pale. And how have you experienced that transformation? What has it meant for you personally, even before we get to you as being the CEO of Group CEO of Alexforbes?
Yeah, I think, one can talk for days about the journey that one had since '94 for me, and up until now. I must just tell one more story, and
Sure.
you'll regret giving me these opportunities because I can talk forever. I should have been a teacher. I can talk forever, but it'll be short. So when I started in '94, and I worked at Sanlam, so very conservative. We had to call anybody more superior than us, meneer, basically meneer. Hello, meneer. Hi, meneer. And that was it. And you couldn't really look the people in the eye. You had to look at their shoes, type of thing. And that's where this actuarial joke comes from, I think, is that you can't look people in the eye if you're an actuary. You look at their shoes. But the thing is, it was basically calling people meneer, and to the point when I got onto the exco at Sanlam, the person that I reported to when I started was on the board at Sanlam, and I still called him meneer in the exco meetings, where everybody else called him Chris this and Chris that, and and I still called him meneer, and then there was a death quiet every time I spoke, because I couldn't call him anything else but meneer, and that's the way that you kind of grew up, and you get over it, and you start believing that, okay, there's value in diversity, and there's change, and transformation for me is much more than just obviously what we're talking about today. It is change. It's the willingness to change, to accept change, and to become better, and to accept that there's differences and there's value in differences. So certainly from where I've come from, and 94 is a long time ago. It's funny that it is 94, but it was 94. It's kind of for me the start of the new South Africa, and that's when I worked, and things changed rapidly, at all organizations in the industry over time, and those that couldn't change, was left behind, and one can see that, it doesn't feel like it for maybe some of you, but those that didn't want to change was left behind, from individuals to organizations, and I think rightfully so, because if you don't change and adapt, you can't operate in today's world.
Let's talk about that from a business case perspective, because I think a lot of the time when you talk about the need for transformation and diversity, it tends to be quite an emotive subject, and we spend very little time talking about the business case for it. What has your experience been for the business case? What does it mean practically from a business case perspective for you?
Yeah, I want to almost. It's a very interesting concept, and there's two things that I want to give as background, and then we start going into it, if I may.
Sure.
As the first thing, I was really fortunate. One of those opportunities that came along early in my career, to go to one of these management courses, and one of the I learned a lot, but one of the biggest lessons that I learned was around diversity and the strength of a team that is diverse, and that doesn't mean black and white. It means female, it means old, young, all diversity, because, I have, what did we call it? Biases.
Yes, unconscious
biases, and that's a powerful thing. And once one understands that you think like this, but in order to get a total solution, you must add this thought and that thought and that thought, and then you get a better solution. You must be able to cultivate it and all of those things. But diverse thought obviously brings better results, and that was instrumental in my upbringing. It was 2010, 2011. So it was, I've already had my course set where I thought I was going and who I was, and it totally changed the way that I thought about business, the way that I thought about putting teams together, and rightfully so. And it's only done me good, through my life, is to understand diversity and embracing it. And I think the second part that I want to give as background is, when I got this opportunity to become CEO of a large organization, I thought, it's a massive opportunity. It's one of those where I thought, I'm set at my old job. I know the people. I can kind of do my job with my eyes closed because I've been around for so long. Now you must jump, firstly from Cape Town to Joburg, which is a big thing. And secondly, you must now start a new challenge. And is it really necessary, and is it going to work? And then you're this white guy, to be honest, that's running this organization who's got, the breadth of South Africans as clients, the population of South Africa as clients. And how are we going to look at transformation? How are the people going to look at me to run this organization for South Africa, for South Africans? How am I going to do that? And I immediately realized that it actually doesn't, it does matter. We want more and more transformation at senior positions. But seeing that I have the job, it's a duty. It's not even just a nice to have. It's a duty for me then, and for any CEO, then to take that seriously and to say, okay, how do I transform this organization? How do I leave a legacy? As part of my duty, as part of success, as part of running, a great company and building teams and getting the right numbers. It's your duty, and how do you do that perfectly? So if you combine these two, then we can talk about, okay, so how do I feel about it and how do we get there? But, that must be your background and your foundation that you say, okay, so, build off that background. And then it's actually quite easy.
Very interesting. So you come from Sanlam in Belzile.
Yeah.
Which is very, very Afrikaner. And I know that even internally, the language is still, I think they have a dual language today, but for very many years it was Afrikaans. So Afrikaans culture, language, and a lot of people could say that on its own would have made it very difficult for any Black person to make it through the ranks. Then you move from that to Alexforbes. How is that transition for you?
Very difficult. Yeah, very difficult. I thought the two organizations would have a similar culture. For me, culture is almost everything, So I thought the two would have a similar culture, a serving culture, serving clients. I think it was very different, and it was a huge change for me. And one that I had to quickly get used to, otherwise you would be spat out, if you don't get used to it. And I think we underestimate also the difference between Cape Town and Joburg.
Yeah.
Joburg is vibey, it's driven, things happen quickly. And I'm not just saying that because I'm now a Joburger. I've lived here for 6 months now, so now I'm a Joburger. But it is so, and it's absolutely target driven and result driven and very dynamic.
Yeah.
And even for me, again, I had to change and adapt and get used to it.
But Dawie, so listening to your story, I mean, it's a really an amazing story of transformation and your decision. It's almost like you took the decision that I will embrace this, I will engage with it, I will take the best out of it, and I'll learn from it, and I will run with it, right? It's not everybody who does that. A typical Afrikaans, South African male has got more to lose than anybody else when you talk about these issues of transformation. What in your, I don't know whether it's a personality, your leadership style, how have you certainly made that transition, and how do you bring others along, especially other white people, Africans? How what in your leadership do you think you've had to pull as a lever to help others walk that journey with you?
See, now we're getting into the more difficult questions.
No. This is now the really nice
Not there
stuff.
yet. It's still the intro. No, it's such a serious matter, and therefore I sometimes try and relieve the tension because with a joke. But I think for me, I try to make things simple, and you can hear from my old team and our strategy and everything. I try to keep things simple. And for me, the one thing that I decided when I got the job is to say, I want to leave a legacy. If I make money, it's okay. If the company is very successful, it's okay. If we grow by this, it's okay. But I want to leave a legacy. And since you've made that call, everything else falls into place.
Okay.
So when I think about transformation, you can't leave a legacy. Say I had to leave after 5 or 10 years after this organization. Somebody had to put up their hand and say, you had good results, but did you empower the people? Did your company transform over time? Did you make a difference? And if those answers aren't positive, then you didn't leave a legacy. So it's very easy now for me to say, okay, but what is the right thing to do? You know, when we have a discussion about something, and I say, okay, I want my daughter to view this decision in 5 years' time. You know, how would I want the market to view this decision in 5 years' time? And then it's actually very easy to do the right thing. You know, you can complicate things and you can overcomplicate things by talking about, is it performance versus transformation? It shouldn't be a discussion. It's about doing the right thing, because in 5 years' time, 3 years' time, 6 months after the decision, the place, the people, the culture, the clients, everything must be in a better place. So I know I oversimplified, but for me, then all the discussions becomes very easy.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, because then you get to it very quickly. You don't sit with the complexity of, oh my goodness, this is so difficult. How are we going to do it? Because it is a mindset thing. I think that's what you're saying. So it's transformation at a personal level, before you can make it at a business level. I asked a question earlier, and I don't think we gave it enough airtime. I asked, from your perspective, the business case for it, whether it's what you've seen or,
So I think the first most important thing is I think diversity of thought, as I said, is critical in team decision making and business success. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think, from a business case is we have an abundance of talent in South Africa, talent everywhere, you know, youngsters coming through. And I always link it to sports as well. You know, we create the offshore rugby and soccer team success, you know, with talent that's grown in here, and then we don't look after the talent. So I want to embrace that talent in the organization, create a culture where, you know, I know the business is going to be so much better off by cultivating that talent. And I know business leaders say that, but I think it's a little bit in how you do it. Is it really a place where people want to work? Is it really a place where people think they can build a career? You know, and obviously at the moment, if you look at the talent that is around there, you know, 80% is going to be black. So appoint 80% black people, and your company will be transformed, and your company will be better off because the talent is there. Just make it so that they want to work for you. So for me, again, the transformation is a result of doing the right thing. I keep on saying, and that's why I don't want to overcomplicate things. Find the best talent, appoint them, cultivate them, make them happy, make the culture work, and your business will be transformed. In South Africa, it's as easy as that. There's no other debate about, you know, about performance and this and this. We've seen it. We've seen it in our investment team. You know, we've got the best talent in the country in our investment team. And did we say, but the soak is black and the soak is white? No, they just came through the ranks and they came through. The second thing, that I just want to add is the only way to really do this. And again, people talk about growing your own timber and all of those words. And I think sometimes it's just words. You must really deliver a place where people want to start and want to grow and then want to make a difference. Not just want to grow and leave. Or want to be poached, you know, at massive salaries from somewhere else where they've already made a difference, because that's just shifting the deck chairs. You're only growing real talent if you're actually looking after the people and they want to make a difference where they are. For the youngsters then around them, and I look at the two gentlemen who's the portfolio managers, for the youngsters around them, but also for the community, you know, for the community and for our clients. And, you know, then is the debate really still transformation? It's almost not, because it just happens. You know, it just happens.
But I like what you're saying, because we held a transformation series, I think about 18 or so months ago. I can't remember exactly. And we wanted to have a conversation around. I think you guys are level 1 BBBE now, right? Every other
and proud of it.
I'd be worried.
Thanks for slipping that.
I'd be worried if you were not. If you're not proud of it. And we find that a lot of financial services companies actually are level 1, 2, maybe 3, right? And yes, we acknowledge that the face of the financial services sector is becoming, darker, and then there's much better gender diversity. To a point, right? And the question that we ask is, what makes it difficult for us to graduate to the top and stay there? So because even in instances where there have been graduations, people have not stayed.
Yeah.
And then secondly, as a financial services professional today in South Africa versus if I had entered the industry in 1994, do I feel that the sector is reflective of me, is representative of who I am? Because in 1994, when I entered, not that I entered there, I was in Belleville, by the way, in 1994. And I know where the Sanlam offices are there. So when let's say I entered into the industry in 1994 as a Black, person, certainly the experience I would have had then would be significantly different to today. And the question is, how is it significantly different today? Do I feel that when I walk into Sanlam, this is sorry, I don't know why I keep going back to Sanlam, but maybe it's because that's where you come from.
Let's not give them it.
Yeah, exactly. Alexforbes.
94 Alexforbes.
Do I feel as an African that this is an African organization? Do I feel that this organization embraces my femininity as a woman? Do I feel at home, or do I continue to feel like an imposter? Because we've got a very big imposter syndrome amongst Black professionals and amongst women in particular.
I mean, I think the short answer is no. Well, the correct answer is no. The only answer is no. We're not there yet.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I was so keen on the transformation policy, because the transformation policy started off and articulated it well, is to look after the industry, the asset management industry, and see how we can improve transformation in general. Why I was so excited, and they say I was a big supporter, but what I was so excited is I could bring my agenda to the policy. And my agenda is to do it practically. You mentioned BE level 1. Does it really matter anymore? Everybody's got some level of BE that gets you all the RFPs and get you done and get your business and all of that. That's actually it's over.
Yeah.
What is now important is real transformation. So getting the right people in the right positions. We must be honest with ourselves that I think our industry has not transformed fast enough. Asset management industry, financial services, and yes, it was always going to take a long time because there's lots of people in the business. They work forever. They build up credit, but we can't use that as an excuse. Our industry has just not evolved quick enough and not transformed quick enough, and we're not there. I don't think we're there. I speak to Anne a lot. I speak to Lebo and Senzo a lot in our team, and it's not like every day they feel this is home, for sure. And they actually run the place, contrary to what they might have told someone else. I'm just a pawn. They actually run the place.
Are you fighting,
But if I give them compliments, I don't have to pay them bonuses. So, but the point is, every now and then you walk into the office and into the space, and you say, I don't feel comfortable. And that's wrong. It should not be that way at all. And part of the drive for this transformation policy is also internally, certainly in the industry, but also internally, to say, how do we fix that?
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to overcomplicate things by saying, all of these wonderful, weird things. We must get the talent in, and we must make the talent want to stay. Currently, the big talent is going and starting their own business. We see some of them in the audience here today. And until we as corporates can't make people feel comfortable and that they want to make a difference there and feel like it's home, we haven't transformed. Doesn't matter what the numbers say, doesn't matter what the BE level says, and we must get that right. So certainly, I think that is what the transformation policy for me is about, or my add-on that I want to put to it, because then we can really say, in 5 years' time or 3 years' time, or hopefully sooner, that, okay, this has made a difference. It's made a difference in people's lives, not in numbers and not in anything else. It's made a difference in people's lives.
I often ask the question, now that we have gotten the darkies in, Does a typical South African in I don't know, in Montiwa or in Soweto, or their interaction with Alexforbes, do they feel that, oh, now that we've got Anne as an example, or whoever at Alexforbes, do I have access to them in terms of how they manage my funds, how they decide how to deploy the capital that they're managing on my behalf, because I suppose they're managing my pension funds and stuff like that. Do I, as a typical Black South African, feel that by Alexander Forbes having all these Black people in, there's a difference in my life?
I believe so.
Okay.
I certainly believe so. Where it starts is just in the business. So we appoint X number of new people joining every year. Those people look up to us, but they are very happy to join an organization where Anne is leading investments, where Senzo and Lebo can be, mentors for them, because they've walked the journey. It is still so that it is difficult for, a young Black person to talk to me. I'm this white Afrikaner, and I don't talk the same language. So what I've realized is I want to mentor and I want to help, but also empower other people around me in the senior positions to be able to do that. And then you've already cracked the first one. And then I certainly believe that that clients and potential clients, because our clients are every individual, in the country that is currently employed, or even more so, that wants to save. And they must believe that, this is an inclusive business, this is inclusive culture, and I can safely put my money with those people. I mean, definitely that is part of the business case for sure. It's funny how people, want to shy away from the business case, and I love that you started there, because the business case isn't just, we'll have more diversity of thought, as I said, and therefore we'll have better outcomes. It's also to build a business, to get more clients, to get people to want to belong to your organization, to want to join your organization. And that's much more than just transformation. It's obviously values and principles and type of advice and type of products. But it is also, are you inclusive, and can people, feel comfortable doing business with you?
So realizing that the face and gender of your clientele actually is changing, and therefore the people who service that clientele need to start being reflective of who they are. That's a very significant part of the business case.
And I think, if we all read the BE charters that came out like hundreds of years ago, that was
it is exactly
20 years ago. That was exactly the reason. Is, we must transform because this is what your clientele looks like, or this is what the breadth of South Africa looks like. Yes, and that's a tick. It should be like that. Minimum,
Yeah.
I just look at it from the other side. If I have, so many people graduating from school or from varsity every year, it'll be 80-20. So you must hire 80-20. It's just as easy as that.
Yeah. But now, Dawie, I want to challenge you, because you're a very important man in our society, and I don't have the power that you have. And I'm pretty sure you've got a lot of influence amongst your other counterparts. I want to challenge you to say you should host a dinner or something at some point and talk about transformation beyond the numbers, because we are still obsessed about the numbers. We're still obsessed about level 1 to level 3. We still have our, it doesn't affect you so much, but certainly the Banking Association of South Africa still bragging about how well we're doing on transformation. And yet your typical South African still doesn't have financial products that are responsive to their needs. And for me, it is great that at an organizational level, we seem to be making the necessary strides. But if your typical South African still does not have the necessary financial products, or we don't see capital being deployed into those areas where I live, which is your townships and your rural areas, we can't honestly say that we have transformed. So it's great that you're transforming organizations culturally, but I also think that from a product and service perspective, we need to start seeing that changing. So will you have that conversation?
I will, and I am.
Okay,
I will, and I am.
Okay.
And I think, just further to that, isn't that exactly the indictment on us as an industry? Because I think we've all achieved level 1s. We've all got, very senior people running very important positions that are Black. But but do we really see the right product? Do we really see the right allocation of capital? Do we really see? We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
So until we don't have people in the corporates actually, making the calls, feeling passionate about what they do, the right product and the right solutions won't come out. And that is a bit of a checkpoint, almost to see how successful are we. Maybe the numbers are counting up, but, the actions now still need to come through.
That's the next frontier.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and what I liked about your policy, I haven't unpacked it sufficiently, so maybe there's some funny things in there that I haven't picked up. But on the face of it,
no funny.
What it promises on the face of it is that by 2025 you will not do business with companies that do not meet a certain level of BEE status, which is great. But your typical black fund manager will say, but I'm a level 3 and Alexforbes is a level 3. Okay, you're not asset managers per se, but you know what I mean. You're not operating at the same level as me. Let me rather put it that way. So if I go to market and I'm still competing with an Alexforbes that says it's a level 1, and then I'm a black fund manager, 100% black owned, whatever, and I'm a level 1 or 3 for that matter. Then is that enough? Should we be having specific targets for black owned or black female owned fund managers, almost as a set aside, and of course still recognizing the need to promote transformation across the whole scorecard?
So I think that is detail, and one should certainly look at it. The way I see our policy, and the guys in the team can shout and can shout at me, but the way I see it is it's a journey. I just want a definitive, hard-driven journey.
Yeah.
So yes, so say asset managers don't reach the criteria, that is in there. Are we just going to fire them? I think we said so. We have minimum criteria that we want, but both sides, from black single startup managers to big corporate managers, walk the journey, because ultimately it's not about being fired or not fired, or getting assets or not getting assets. It's actually about transforming the industry.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a stick, but I think we said we're definitely not going to say this is a stick approach. This is a carrot approach. So the carrot approach says let's do the right thing. Let's walk this journey. It is so encouraging to be able to talk to all the asset managers, whether they're young, startup, fresh, new, old, to say, how can we walk this journey so that we actually transform, rather than just losing assets, or rather than just gaining assets and being lucky. Let's transform the industry, because if it's one guy working out of his garage that is 100% black owned, with no compliance and no risk management, then that's also not going to help.
Yeah.
Also not if it's a white oak, But let's build a business that has got great compliance, great depth, great succession, but is black owned and is helping youngsters to come through, which is for me critical. Yeah.
Very, very important. And I'm going to get into a broader theme now, but this is so important. So one of the things that we criticize a lot as Absip and as black professionals in the industry is that, again, we talk about great strides when it comes to diversity and transformation, but the capital allocation, that the quantums of capital that are being allocated to black fund managers are still, fairly small. Is it part of the intended outcome of this policy of yours to see that increase in the allocation towards black fund managers?
Yeah, but I mean, I think 100%, and certainly the wish is there that 100% of the allocation will be to, very transformed asset managers over time, for sure.
Okay.
But does that mean that I don't want a current white-owned asset manager that is very successful with billions of assets to just transform, to keep his assets? I also want that, because, that's as easy as starting a new black asset manager, employing black guys. I mean, as long as the industry transforms, So certainly over time, I think we would want a balanced, transformed industry, and that must get certainly the assets from the allocators, for sure.
So Dawie, Do you and I have a meeting once a year to check how far we're doing on that? I call it Policy 2025.
No, 100%, 100%. And I think the nice thing is it's a discussion point in the industry now. It's a discussion point amongst us in the industry, and we're driving that, and we're proud to drive that. And things pop up every now and then that we didn't think about, and then we change and we adapt. We're very keen on that. And I must say something whilst I have the floor is we initiated the strategy, but we can't make it work alone. We need partners. So firstly, thanks to Absip, who's embraced this and help us drive it, help us endorse it. And so all the asset managers, we have probably not had one asset manager that has said, "Are you crazy? What the hell are you doing?" They're all saying, "How can we get there?" Initially, there was a few, and that's the comments that Anne made. We must, what is this about, and how is this going to work, and is it the stick, and are we going to be fired tomorrow, and all of those things. But as soon as everybody realized, okay, this is actually where we should have been, long ago, we're just trying to get there quicker. And besides the regulation, regulation is one side. This is about true transformation, and I think all the partners, all the asset managers, the whole industry, the support from clients, who's embracing this, understanding now the value that we'll get. The other thing is, I say to everyone, if you embark on something like this, rather do it well and do it right. Because tomorrow there's some kind of legislation that comes in that messes the whole industry up. Not just for the white asset managers, but also for the black asset managers. Because suddenly you have this law and that law and that law that comes in that says, okay, now I can't operate. Let's do it in a measured approach so that we get there in the right way to benefit everyone.
Thank you very much. I have 100 other questions, but I'll keep them for our next session. I would like to invite our audience, both virtually as well as physically, to ask questions in case there's something that you feel is burning and I have not asked Dawie, because it is a conversation. But Dawie, if there's anything else I know that you had wanted to talk about. We're not going to talk about grey listing today.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine.
But maybe talk about, now I understand what your own role has been around transformation and what you've done as a CEO, GCO of Alexforbes and. But you don't operate as an island. You operate in a society. We've got government, we've got regulations, we've got, what have been the challenges or impediments, or potentially what do you see as future potential impediments to us achieving what we're trying to achieve?
That is a very wide question, and I was more afraid of that question than the grey listing question. But I do think, I do think the environment is very difficult. I wanted to say, I thought you were going to start, the discussion with SA Inc. Where's SA Inc. and where are we at, and load shedding and power crisis and water and cabinet reshuffles that isn't really a reshuffle. We can talk about all of those things. And what I wanted to say is, the only good thing that I can say about where South Africa is at the moment, in my mind, is that, there's a saying, the darkest hour is just before the dawn. Because it feels like we're in a bit of a dark spot at the moment, literally and figuratively speaking. And I can tell you that I'm probably one of the most optimistic and positive people around. During COVID, I sat Isaiah down. Isaiah was our previous economist. I sat him down and I said, Isaiah, I'm sure if you really do hard work, you can find green shoots in this economy and in this country of ours, and I'm sure you'll find data to support it. I don't need to just talk about it. Find data and write articles about the green shoots. And, it turned, and I don't know whether all of you remember and whether you will actually think about it now that I say it, but Isaiah wrote a lot of articles about positive things that's happening in South Africa, and that kept us all, in my mind, going and thinking about the future. At the moment, though, I am more worried. I am more worried. And back to your question about what is standing in our way. If we don't execute on the reform plans,
Mm.
if we don't stop talking and doing,
Mhm.
and as a country, then this is not going to work out for any of us. We can have as much plans as we want to about, how we want to build asset management industry, how we want to, look after our clients. It is not going to work. So the only answer I have is we have to stand together.
Yeah.
As corporate South Africa, as industry bodies, and very much so industry bodies, and then certainly the corporates, and start acting. To stand from the side and shout that things must change. We've now seen it's not going to change. It's not going to happen without us. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen without our involvement. And I've even, I'm part of all of these industry bodies, and I'll say it, straight-faced, or some of them, obviously. BLSA, ASISA, BUSA, BASA, you can talk about all of these bodies, and everybody's trying their damnedest to make a difference. But it's always a discussion.
Yeah.
What can we do? We don't want your help. Your help isn't good enough. I'll do it myself. It's always a discussion and collaboration. Instead of saying, okay, so what do we need to do, and actually do it?
Yeah.
Act. And it won't be liked by everybody. But if we as an industry and as a country and as corporates don't stand up now and say, okay, now we must fix a few things. Now we must actually, stand back and say, where can we involve ourselves directly and do stuff and make a difference? I think we're not going to see the change, and that's not going to be great for our economy. We can't continue with another 2-3 years without growth.
Yeah.
We want a better place for our people, for our kids, for our families, for our communities. We're not going to see upliftment. We're not going to see job creation, if there's no growth.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And we have to create it as corporate South Africa. So I think it's a call to action now. It's now time. It's a call to action, and certainly I'm on that wicket. We're as Alexforbes certainly there, where we want to make a difference, and I think all corporates need to stand together and now do it.
And not necessarily through BLSA or anybody, please. Just as because I think the minute you do it under such bodies, then somebody doesn't like them, and now you're dealing with different politics. I had a similar discussion with Hendrik du Toit about a month ago, actually, and he undertook to host a dinner to discuss this. So you will be hosting a dinner on how to do proper transformation, but you will go to his dinner to talk about how, as leaders of industry, we are now taking, we're taking it into our own hands, because if we're going to wait for other people who call themselves leaders to do anything, we might not get to where we need to get to. But importantly, what you are saying, which is something that we need to highlight, is we are meeting to talk to do, not we're meeting to talk to plan, but we move out of that conversation saying, okay, tomorrow, Polo, this is what you're doing, and then come back in a few days' time and report back or show me what you've
100%,
done.
100%.
I do think that that time is long overdue.
Yeah, no, it is time.
Yeah.
And we have no choice. We have no choice now.
We have too much to lose. Oh, there's so many hands. I was talking because I wasn't seeing hands.
Thank you, Madam President. I think firstly, I'd like to congratulate Alexforbes for the journey that you've embarked on. It's very good. Some of the points that you've made, that you can't do this alone, you need other partners. Indeed, it's good that you are seeing people, I'd call it the private sector, who are embarking on transformation, because it was easier in the past when the likes of GEPF, PIC, and EPPF were doing this, and I was at EPPF for a long time, for people to say, well, we just won't go to EPPF to look for assets. We're going to go to Dawie and other guys, and they won't bother us with these things. It becomes difficult to, not that you want to checkmate someone, but it becomes difficult to hold people to account. So when the likes of you start saying, no, actually, we are wanting this, and while we might be giving you time to get up to it, but we are going to want, I think it's very important. It leaves no space for people to hide. I think, though, it is easy to have policies and to have good plans. It becomes difficult and probably not serving the people you want to serve well. And I'm talking here about Absip with the managers there, if not enough resources are being brought into this. And I think that's probably a question that I want to pose to you, but probably also just for all of us to think about. Many times where I was, many years ago when I used to be a value investor, used to look for companies that are under-researched because analysts are busy with bigger things, not the smaller ones. That's where you find value. As an asset manager, you certainly want to be researched. You do not want to be under-researched. So how can we make sure that not just Alexforbes, but the other big asset allocators, we make sure that the what could be a bottleneck is expanded. So even when you're looking at this and saying, here's this policy, and I've given carte blanche to the CEO, to the CIO and deputy CIOs, but let's make sure then that we've got all this capacity. Is that something that one thinks about? And if you have, I know there's a war for talent, but how can we make sure that we develop that so that indeed we're able to look at more players so that we can find the good ones and say, yes, we're committing money to them, or these ones are not good, so we won't commit money. But it won't be that asset managers die just because nobody had analyzed them. And it's going to be the startup ones, it's going to be the black ones that don't have those resources, that can't really live long. So how can you make sure that the policy is backed up by the commitment of resources?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very important question and point. We felt in launching the policy, we as a business, and I'm not marketing our Alexforbes now, but you gave me the gap, so I'm gonna say it. One of our strengths in our capability is certainly our manager research. We could quite easily, if we wanted to continue with running a performer fund with 3 asset managers, underlying, run the research function with one person. I constantly say to them, why don't we just have one person, your 3 funds that you're going to have, you interview them once a year and that's it. But it doesn't work like that. We want to make sure that we find the right talent, that we blend the right talent, and that we do proper research on the industry. So we have quite a big team that does that research. Should it be more and can it be more? I think as the industry grows, can be. Should the industry be as diverse and so many, not diverse, it should be diverse, as many asset managers with fewer assets? I think there should be a consolidation as well, because you can throw as many resources behind. I don't think it's sustainable to really run, a research function for so many asset managers, or also run small asset managers, in the current environment, because scale does work. So I think it's a bit of both, but certainly through the defining the policy and in creating our value proposition, we realized that we need to have a proper functioning research capability in order to get to all the asset managers. Could it be more? Maybe.
I'm asking questions on behalf of those who are online. These are not mine. How is Alexforbes supporting the development of small and new financial services companies, especially those that are Black-owned and women-owned? A second question, and I'll truncate it, says, I agree with you, Dawie, that the levels of transformation within organizations has moved substantially. But when will we start developing products that address the needs of members and beneficiaries, in particular those from pension funds? And when will we update the language so that it's inclusive for them? And then the last one is, what is the plan around succession planning and development of women at Alexforbes?
I didn't make notes, so I can't remember all 3 questions, but I'll try. I think to start off with, we take succession planning quite seriously in our transformation journey in itself, but just succession itself very seriously. So, we have, for all our levels, for all our management levels, we have succession plans in place, journeys in place, and doing that. I think it's critical in developing talent in any case. And if you preach, homegrown, own timber, and you don't have succession planning, then it doesn't work. And succession planning is not just hop on the same point. It's not just identifying people. It's actually giving people the capability to actually do the job. I see the biggest failure of corporate South Africa and transformation in itself as people getting jobs but not being able to do the job, not because they don't have the qualities, just because they weren't capacitated with the right qualities and the right training and the right to do the job. And I think, in order to build this thing as successful, a proper succession plan is there. So we do have that. And then I think your question about small, medium enterprises as partners, it's definitely part of the journey. And there's normal BE points for that. So certainly it's part of the journey from just that perspective. We also look at quality. So that's the other thing. I think transformation goes hand in hand with performance and quality and delivery. So let's use a brokerage as an example. If you start a one-man brokerage, we can't give you assets because it's still massive amounts of client money that has to be transacted at the best price in the market. So will we help you to get there? Yes, but we can't just allocate money because you are necessarily black owned. And that's the journey that we always talk about, is getting more and more and more into to be more inclusive. So we certainly are driving that, and we're making sure that it is in the right. I think I missed the first.
The female representation.
Female representation. I got the product, I think. Yeah. The product, yeah. So the product, I think we've touched on it earlier. The ultimate test of when the industry is transformed, if we can look after more people. We've got a saying in our business that we want to make advice accessible to every South African. If you think about it, the people that retire comfortably are the top end of the market. Is it necessarily because they saved more? No, because they also have higher living standards. So they can retire comfortably because they got advice. In my view, help. It's not even advice. It's not advice like, what you pay for. Help. Understanding. How much do I save? When do I buy the right things? When do I, do the certain things? When do I change my portfolio? That type of thing. So if the average South African doesn't have the access to the help, then they can't better themselves. They can't understand why they transact what they do. So that's certainly a journey that we're on, is to make the advice or help accessible to everyone. And we've got that opportunity because we've got, 1.5 million members that save through funds with us. And 80-90% of them don't understand what is equity. And I promise you that is a fact of life. When you talk shares and bonds, they don't have a clue what is shares and bonds. So if you talk, 60% aggressive, 60% real equity, real assets in an aggressive portfolio, what does it mean? So change the language, change the product, and make the help accessible. And then people will start making the right calls. It is a journey, but we're certainly on that. And I think that'll be a true test of transformation as well over time.
Yeah. Isaac and then Pelisa. Yeah.
Pelisa Ngonyama from 91. I want to declare first, before I ask the question, that I worked with Dawie for 10 years at Sanlam very closely. And I'm encouraged to see that you haven't changed a bit. You're still
He
the
hasn't
same.
transformed. My goodness.
Same authentic, relaxed, transformed person met in my life, and I've worked with, and I had a privilege. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking that I was worried when you left that Joburg was going to change. In fact, it hasn't. It has enhanced and gave you the space to actually be who I've known you to be. The question, you've made it so simple that this transformation is not about numbers. Firstly, you mentioned culture. Secondly, you've mentioned the space that you're bringing people in, that it must be a conducive space for people to stay. And it is that simple. Now, how do you, as a leader in the industry, how do you teach or lead other leaders and keep it as simple as we are keeping it now, such that everyone understands that actually it's not about numbers. It's about embracing and including all the South Africans in the financial services space, number one. Number two, and let people thrive. I mean, you've got a policy in one hand as Alexforbes, or as Alexforbes, but you're living it yourself. We're sitting here and we're looking at it, we're seeing the transformation, we're seeing people taking positions because the environment is allowing them to. So how do you teach and lead others to do exactly the same as you and keep it as simple as we are keeping it now, so that we all benefit in the industry and in the South Africa as a whole?
Thanks, Pelisa. I value your comments. It was a
You must have
blessing.
paid her very well when she was at Tandem.
It's funny, we worked together and Pelisa taught me a lot, and introduced me to a lot of people. So very valuable friend. And I think, I take it as a compliment. I never see myself as somebody that is really changing and transforming and leading others. I just, want to do the right thing. But I take it as a compliment, and certainly you've put pressure on me to make sure that we do more in the wider industry. And you're right, it doesn't happen in, only in these industry bodies. I think that is a place to drive it, because that's where policies come in and where there's some things happening, but it's behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, influencing others, proving. Also one that, I don't like preaching to others, firstly, and I don't want to shout from the rooftops until we haven't been successful ourselves, So I said to the team, bringing out this policy is a risk, because, you can't have any fingers pointed at you if you don't yourself live this and do the right thing. So we've put that pressure on ourselves in order to deliver. So I don't want to preach to others until we've been successful, but certainly it is a very valuable discussion to have with other leaders. And I'm hoping that, our success as an organization over time will lead to others saying, okay, well, I want to be like that. I want to be that successful. Isn't that almost more powerful as being told you must do it? As you want to catch this bus, otherwise you're being left behind. And I'm hoping that we'll be so successful in that others would want to emulate us. But I take your point. Thanks, Pelisa.
But Pelisa, just so that you remind him when you next see him, he has promised to have a dinner to host a few people to have this conversation. Yeah, please, yeah. And just call him and remind him, because it's very important and busy people forget.
I thought this was a nice discussion. Now it's arranging dinner.
That's typically the outcome of our discussion. Isaac. Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's not me who made that determination. Thanks, Bulu and Dawie. It's quite an interesting and refreshing conversation on a Monday afternoon. Just to follow through on the dinners, Pelisa, just remind Hendrik that also there's a link with the FSTC on the dinners. So it's the FSTC, it's Davie's one, and then it's the summit.
Okay.
So
she's the CEO of the Financial Services Council.
I mean,
towards the summit itself. And what I want to say, Dawie, is that Bulu said she's your number one supporter. Before her, it's me. I'm your cheerleader on your transformation strategy. So I'm the first, and then she comes after me.
Thank you.
Then, I just want to contextualize my question in terms of what you have unpacked during this conversation. Given the call to action, the notion of a business as standing together and to implement transformation in the right manner, and it's exactly like what you said, and the challenges that you have alluded to, us being in our darkest hour, and having alluded to the current framework, which is, I believe, is informed by what you said in the beginning, that it is the duty of every CEO to transform. How would you quantify the real measure of transformation? I know you've spoken at length about transforming the organization itself, but bringing it to the industry, to the benefit of the beneficiaries, because I think that's what would be important to me. How would you then quantify that given these challenges? Because one of the things that you spoke about in responding to Pelisa's question is your approach to leadership. You want to kind of, for lack of a better word, pilot what you have started, and then you begin then to replicate it, and then it becomes one of the reference point in terms of what you would have achieved in Alexforbes. How would you then quantify what that real measure should be in terms of advancing a transformation? And also just to what you alluded to as you were responding to her, is that you having like this back-end conversation. What should we anticipate in those translating to lived experiences, not only for the professionals within the sector once again, but to the benefit of the broader society? Because you said one profound thing in the beginning, that whatever that you are doing, it has to mirror the current dynamics of this country. Thanks.
Thanks. I kind of chuckled when I think, Paulo, you said at some point, it's not about the numbers. And I'm actually only a numbers guy. I don't understand people, and I don't understand culture, and I'm actually the only thing I understand is numbers. So one measure is numbers, and it will always be. What's your percentage, what's your number of leaders, what's your ratings, that is, and it is still a numbers game. When do you get to the 80%, at all levels, and how do you bring in women, and what's the numbers? Because ultimately you must drive the numbers to get there. But for me, the real measure is twofold. One is if you're attracting Black talent because it's a great place to work, and they feel comfortable, and they want to be there, and they want to make an impact in that business. That would be ultimate for me. And then even more so, the second measure is if clients want to do business with you because they feel comfortable that they can do business with you because you transformed, or you associate with them, or you have the right culture and the right people heading up the business, running the business, making the calls, doing the decisions. So that's softer measures, and we always have to, when we measure outcomes, we have to go back to the numbers, unfortunately. But I think ultimate test, great talent attraction, and clients happy with the products and the service that you give them, because they want to do business with you. It's the pull factor. I always believe in the pull factor, both for staff and for clients. Once you have those two, then you've arrived. And I think I elaborate on, sorry, but I do know that I can talk to the other leaders, and other leaders can talk to me, and we can help each other out, and we can push each other, and we should do that. But if you prove to be successful, others will follow, and others will want to copy you, because everybody wants to be successful. And we will be successful, and therefore others will copy us. That's how confident I am in our strategy.
Okay. Isaac, and then so that Langa has got questions from the floor, and then John. Is that okay? Thanks.
Thanks. Maybe Pelisa should also declare that with your help, every year I used to take a delegation to go and Dawie's office to go and ask him difficult questions with the trustees of the different funds that we used to do that. And I echo what Pelisa said on that he'll be calm, answer the questions. Where he doesn't have answers, he says, let's work on it and whatever. That's what Dawie used to do. If you look at the scorecard of the industry in 2008, there were great prospects of transformation happening in the industry. And somehow it reversed. My question is, you have started what you have started here in terms of transformation, and people are start talking about it, and it's starting to be visible. How are you going to make sure that the process is not aborted and go back? Because in some cases, people who own institutions, sometimes they're uncomfortable when things are outside of their control. So this transformation might be out of their control. So how to make sure that this thing doesn't go back? It's not aborted.
Very important point. I think one mustn't confuse our policy with legislation, and I think that's the difference. We see this as transformation from within the industry, from within Forbes, from within friends, colleagues, partners, and therefore we believe it'll be sustainable, and it is not a stick but a carrot. Pull factor. We want to succeed. We want to change this, showing the merits of the change. So I think, we will have to do introspection. We will have to look. We will have to see what the changes are over time. That will definitely be part of, what we'll do as Forbes on behalf of the industry, not to name and shame, but actually to show the improvements. But I genuinely believe the way it's done is a resurgence from within, and therefore it'll get legs of its own. I genuinely believe that, and I think one will see the measures, and we'll all be proud of the improvements over time, rather than having to use a document as a stick. And I do think so. But on our annual or biannual one-on-ones, you can certainly keep me honest.
Can I ask Langa he's asking on behalf of the virtual audience, and then, or maybe John, since you've got the mic, please just go ahead.
Yeah.
And
No, thank you very much, John Oliphant here. Firstly, congratulations on your transformation journey. I think it's exciting to have an institution like Alexforbes being at the forefront of this journey. My question probably is more at the policy level and at the country level.
Yeah.
That you and me, we are all service providers of workers and pensioners. And that population is shrinking because we've got the highest levels of unemployment. We've got a GDP growth that is sluggish. So we're not really generating jobs. Now, if you look at Regulation 28, which has been amended, and obviously I'm just referring to a subset of savings pool, has advocated for a 45% allocation to outside South Africa and potentially outside Africa. And that it can have certain implications because maybe you're starving the South African economy of savings. And then secondly, you've got a shrinking JSE. Maybe there is a need to have a more increased appetite for unlisted investments, for example. So I feel like maybe the leadership role on transformation in as far as the asset management industry is concerned should be combined with a concerted effort around directing savings pool towards igniting the economy and thereby generating more jobs. And those people will in future then be able to contribute towards retirement savings. So I don't know what's your view on these issues. And obviously, as far as transformation is concerned, if I were to speak as an asset manager, on that 45%, there's already debates whether a person sitting in Joburg is the one that's going to manage it, or as some would say, I've got offices in London, or they'll say I've got offices in London, therefore we've got the best chance of managing it. But it's a real problem because the South African asset management industry might shrink, making it more difficult, but more importantly, the issue of not generating more jobs is actually leading to a terminal decline of our industry.
It's a deep question, John, and and that's why you kind of ask a question, but you also make a comment. I think it's a deep question. and I see the time is out, but I want to quickly, say, I think when we think about sustainability as a topic, we think about transformation as a topic, and we think about South Africa as a topic. It's all intertwined, and it's all, converging into the same thing. Unlisted investment is going to become more important in the right vehicles, driving the right behavior in South Africa, having the right unintended consequences, plus, producing great returns for members, so that we don't have to take the money offshore to go chase the returns. And if we can't make it happen, the money will go offshore, because there are other opportunities. So, I agree with you. I think it's a massive threat for the South African economy. It's a massive threat for the South African industry. But Treasury did their calcs. They did their numbers. They one of the institutions that has done us well and done us proud with, they understand the environment. So they wouldn't do something like this, just for, the sake of it. So I think it's upon us now as an industry to prove to our members that we can generate the returns here, we can get the economy to grow, whether it's listed or unlisted, but I think more and more so unlisted environment. 100% agree, and that talks to the sustainability, it talks to infrastructure development, it talks to the whole value chain in order to create jobs and make South Africa a better place. So I think it's a great opportunity actually, rather than seeing it as a fear.
Thanks for that. Mindful of time, Langa. The questions, are they long?
No, there's just one left.
Okay.
This question is from the online platform. Apart from making lang, but it says, if you're president of the country, what would be the 3 priorities that you would use to drive us forward from where we are currently?
I think the energy crisis is an issue, but I feel personally that, we must change this country from being an absolute lawless place into rules and regulatory and, law, and follow the rule of law and implement the rule of law, have policing, have convictions, have people can't just continue to do what they want to and get away with it. From white collar crime straight through to, driving misdemeanors. It is unbelievable how lawless we are as a country, and that leads to a lot of negative things. So sort that out and implement the reforms that have been, accepted by the whole of South Africa and the whole of the world that will change South Africa. Just implement those. It is not difficult. As a corporate and as you all in your own businesses, you make a plan and then you execute. And that's the only time when you get results. By making the plan, you don't get results. So it's about executing those reforms. That's all I would do. Execution of those results, of those reforms.
Thank you so much, Dawie. I think that's a very good way of ending this session, because it touches on culture. You're essentially saying that we've gotten ourselves into such a terrible culture that we don't even remember what it's like to be arrested and to be taken to court and to be found guilty and to stay in prison, actually. And we do need to get back to that. I think if we don't have that discipline, it doesn't really matter how great policies we come up with. But thank you so very much for really getting into these issues in such a deep way. I really enjoyed this. I did find your input quite authentic and really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed engaging with ourselves as well. And we look forward to that dinner. I think we're all invited to the dinner.
Thank you from my side as well. It was a real honor.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon once again. I'm here to do the vote of thanks before we close. First and foremost, we'd like to extend heartfelt gratitude to Alexforbes, the leadership of the business, for allowing us to have this conversation and for hosting us graciously. There will be champagne after this. And thank you again to Alexforbes for your continued partnership with Absip, and for the tough questions that you ask us to make sure we also stay honest as an organization. And then after that, I'd like to thank Dawie. My key takeaway is I too can be an actuary. I was online registering at University of Pretoria. And the next time we have this engagement, we'll be speaking actuary to actuary. But again, I'd like to thank the leaders of business, the leaders of investment institutions here, and in absentia, Mr. Thomas Nketela, who said I was forgetting him because he's online. You are recognized leadership. I'd also like to give a special mention and a special thanks to the NEC and leadership of Absip, who continue to support the initiatives that we are doing, who work in what is a thankless job, except when I get to thank them, driving transformation and sacrificing their time, resources to ensure that we can build and rebuild the organization and continue to strengthen it. Would also like to extend a thanks to the president of Absip for continued guidance and leadership, and to 91 and Alexforbes for hosting dinners. And last but not least, it's always a joy to hear there will be a dinner when you are the one who's going to be drafting the guest list. Oh. But last but not least, I would like to, second last, I would like to congratulate the two deputy CIOs. We recognize you. Congratulations, gentlemen. We look to making the industry. And then last but not least, I'd like to thank the Deputy President of Absip for doing what is a stellar job as always, emceeing this. And a shout out to Zagiti Mtembo. She asked me to do that online as well. Thank you and great evening. See you at drinks.